IVM.
Hey, Raghavi,
Mhm.
how do you feel about vengeance?
I have very positive thoughts. I've always, I always thought of myself as a Batman type figure, just fighting for justice, the Dark Knight, that sort of stuff. So I have positive thoughts. Yes.
Whenever I say the words like vengeance and Batman together, for some reason, I only think of like Lego Batman, that song. Yeah.
Darkness.
No,
No
parents.
parents. We're gonna get copyrighted. We're gonna get a
Oh,
copyright
no.
strike for this. So let's end that here.
Have you ever wondered why women don't do more crime?
Well, we're here to tell you there's misconduct all the time.
Women are thieves and murderers.
That's gross misconduct.
Con artists, money launderers.
Criminal misconduct.
Financial fraud that's hard to track.
Takes some planning, but still misconduct.
Even breaching a contract.
That's more civil though.
It's misconduct. It's misconduct. We tell you all about women that suck. Things that make you say, what the? It's misconduct.
Hello, and welcome to Misconduct. We are a podcast that must be evident by this point, and we talk about Indian women that have committed crimes. And usually we wonder, what caused them to commit such a crime? What are the crimes in question? Etc., etc. But today we are wondering is it okay to commit a crime in order to fight another crime? I'm Raghavi.
And I am Nisha. And today we will be talking about the Gulabi Gang, a women's rights organization that is equal parts social work and violent reactionary actions against people that commit crimes against women.
Yay.
Now, when Raghavi said, is it okay to commit a crime in order to fight another crime? What she meant was vigilantism.
Yes, vigilantism.
Sure, you'll get there.
Yeah.
So, Gulabi Gang was founded by Sampat Pal in a distant remote village in the state of Uttar Pradesh. The village, called Banda, was one of the many small towns that were heavily impacted by violence against women. Sampat, along with almost 300,000 members, organized a women's movement that spread across the state of Uttar Pradesh. These women call themselves the Gulabi Gang because they dressed in gulabi clothing. So gulabi loosely translates to the color of a rose or, pink. So, clad in these pink sarees, the members of the Gulabi Gang armed themselves with bamboo sticks and other weapons, ready to use them to protect the powerless from abuse and fight corruption that causes women's issues.
So the group's mission statement, and this is also available on their website, this appears to be support and train women to enhance their basic skills to become economically secure and develop confidence to protect themselves from abuse through sustainable livelihood options. Which doesn't appear very innocuous, and also it's quite tepid. Like, it sounds like any non-profit organization's vague kind of vision,
Yeah, but it goes a bit beyond that. Aside from protesting peacefully in certain cases, the Gulabi Gang is notorious for taking the law into their own hands. So this has ranged from hunting down alleged perpetrators of physical or sexual violence and causing unrest amongst local populations in order to right anything that they considered wrong. It also goes up to publicly shaming people they considered offenders in a manner that's bordering on defamation.
Wait, are you not a fan of vigilantism?
Vigilantism.
Yeah, sure. But this is like something new that I didn't know about you, because I just kind of figured you'd be into it. Like, do you not like it when people take the law into their own hands?
So I don't not like it. Like, I mean, you have like Batman. All these superheroes are basically vigilantes, right?
Yes.
But I just don't appreciate it when they do it without like legal authority or sort of against the law.
But that is what it is. That's what I said.
No, I mean, like, I believe that there should be some reasonable restrictions to this. Like,
Okay.
there is a law and order and it exists for a reason. To take it into your own hands is kind of like an antithesis to the democratic system.
That way. Okay, cool. This is a great topic for a clash that we can discuss later. Stay tuned, listeners.
Yes.
But first, context setting.
Sounds perfect. Oh, before we start, some disclaimers. This episode will certainly feature descriptions of physical and sexual assault, illegal marriage and abuse of minor children, and threatening of physical or other forms of violence. We will try to keep it gore free. However, please do consider this a trigger warning. This podcast is not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, so gear up, everyone, because today's context setting will be done by me.
Yay! I always love this.
So now many of you might already know this, but for those of you who don't, India does not have the best reputation when it comes to women's safety.
Mhm.
And we have the statistics to prove it. The National Crime Records Bureau, in their report on crime stats of 2018, stated that an average of 91 rapes were reported every single day across the country. In all, the number of cases registered under the category of crimes against women were about 378,277.
Whoa.
The number of cases that are defined as rape in the Indian Penal Code hit about 33,356 in 2018. 2 years prior, that's 2016, the crimes against women category saw 338,954 cases. So that's a jump of about 40,000 cases in about 2 years.
Whoa. Okay. Sorry, what counts as crimes against women?
Okay, there's a lot. So there's dowry death, sexual harassment, kidnapping, and abduction of women to compel for marriage, acid attacks, infanticide, child marriage, and domestic violence. Also in 2018, Uttar Pradesh was listed as number 1 in Indian states that are unsafe for women. The total share of crimes against women account for about 15% in Uttar Pradesh alone.
Yeah, but isn't Uttar Pradesh also like the most populous state in India?
Yeah, that's fair. It holds about 19% of the entire country's population. However, female literacy falls at about 57% according to the 2011 census, as opposed to the 77% literacy amongst men.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
huge disparity.
It is.
Yeah.
Also, don't they do census like once in 10 years?
Well, yeah, we had COVID last year though, so.
Hopefully these numbers have changed. But if we're going by these numbers, it means that as much as we try, Uttar Pradesh is going to have a disproportionately large number of women that are either illiterate or unable to hold any traditional or formal form of employment, and most likely resorting to depending on their male family members for monetary and other assistance.
Okay.
There is also the fact that Uttar Pradesh sees quite a bit of caste discrimination and violence, which means if you are a woman of an lower caste, so to speak, you would find social and financial mobility infinitely harder than the others,
Right.
and therefore more likely to be exposed to gender-based violence.
Yeah, that's fair, right? Because the stuff that contributes towards women's safety, like those are things like assured housing, income equality, access to sanitation, menstrual reproductive health, access to education, anti-discrimination policies that are enforced, all stuff that we don't necessarily see in a lot of smaller Indian rural areas in particular.
Yep. So unfortunately, a lot of women in rural areas are often deprived of these things. This results in a rise in crime against women generally.
Okay.
And when over 20% of UP's village population includes, women from these oppressed castes, then the numbers are going to be high.
Right.
Also, a significant section of UP includes some of the poorest districts in India. In the last couple of decades, mismanagement of funds, lack of political will has resulted in a lot of major issues for this particular area.
Right.
This includes loss of agricultural area, loss of jobs, consistent droughts, lack of access to education and medical services, supply chain issues for movement of essential goods, and we can go on and on.
Whoa, this is just like, it's just like a weird pile of just everything that could potentially just go wrong, right? And the thing is, like now that, we're talking about the Gulabi Gang, a large majority of the women that were members of this were actually from these communities, especially from social classes that were conventionally oppressed, right?
Yeah, so these are from communities that have been societally and institutionally denied access to a lot of things that other women just take for granted. And this background is broadly what you need to understand why the Gulabi Gang exists today.
That's absolutely fair. And statistics wise, that's also extremely worrying. But let's actually take a step back to 2006. This is a time when, all these crimes that you've listed, I'm sure all of these still existed, right? But they were from a time when I guess the internet didn't exist, so you couldn't shame anybody on Twitter for doing it, which probably meant, less engagement from law enforcement, fewer women reporting these cases to the police, the media, and stuff like that. So I would presume the situation is very similar or maybe even worse than today, back in 2006. And with this background, let's, like you said, meet Sampat Devi Pal. Sampat Pal is credited to be the founder of the Gulabi Gang. So she is from the Bundelkhand district of Uttar Pradesh, specifically the Banda district that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Her caste can be deduced by her name Pal, which means shepherd in Hindi. And this is the name given to certain members of the Gadariya caste. Now, Sampat has stated that, when she was young, she wanted to go to school. And apparently, when she managed to enroll in school, she excelled academically. At some point, her parents had to pull her out of her education, and she rebelled against this by writing all over the walls of her home with a piece of chalk.
Nice.
But it gets sad now. So, for her disobedience, Sampat was married off at the age of 9. There are some reports say that this was actually at the age of 12. Not that makes anything better. It's just absolutely heartbreaking that her parents considered appropriate punishment for this to be child marriage, right? So Sampat was married off to an ice cream seller in her village, a man named Munni Lal Pal, and he was 10 years her senior. She had her first child at the age of 13, which makes her no more a child. Like, she was literally a child. It's babies having babies. She also later went on to have 5 more children.
So in later interviews, Sampat describes that her husband did not introduce her to married life appropriately. She believes that many times when they had sexual intercourse, she was actually sexually assaulted. However, she did say later in life that she did not hold any grudges, but the pain of her experiences with her husband was what gave her the empathy to understand and defend women today.
It's awful that women have to rise from the ashes to
I
really
know.
feel, anything of this sort. It's terrible. Terrible. More on Sampat though, she had an on and off business selling vegetables in her area. You wouldn't say she was necessarily financially independent, but she did have something going on for her. Later, she also became a rural health worker, but she eventually quit because she wasn't satisfied with the work. Now, in an autobiography written obviously by her in collaboration with Anne Berthard, who is a French journalist, Sampat's life is described as one of immense hardship, particularly considering the feudalistic and male dominated society that she lived in. There's a BBC article from 2007 that features her that actually says, and I quote, "It is not surprising that a women's vigilante group has sprung up in this landscape of poverty, discrimination, and chauvinism."
Do you feel like this article has some elements of white people savior complex?
That is most of Western media.
That is fair. That's actually true. If they any point of time they want to talk about us third world nations, poor India, hungry India, that's like, yeah, I get it. But
Yeah,
go back to Sampat, please.
sure, of course. That's a very different discussion that
Yeah, it
we
is.
continue to have in every episode also.
I
So it's not a
know.
big deal. But yes, moving on. In 2006, on a summer day, Sampat witnessed a man beating his wife in the middle of a busy street. Sampat recalls that the woman was screaming for help and no one had come to her aid. And when Sampat stepped in to stop the abuse, the man appears to have either hit Sampat himself or he sort of yelled at her to back off. And Sampat did back off because she was just one woman and it was pretty evident that no one was ready to help her. However, she went home and devised a plan for some sort of revenge.
Dun dun dun.
She gathered 5 other women from her locality and armed them with lathis or wooden sticks. The next morning, the 6 women marched to the man's home, dragged him out of his house, and beat him with their lathis in broad daylight for all of the street to watch.
Oh man, I'm so torn between just like calling this out as straight up assault, but then also like kind of happy for these women.
Yay, welcome to this grey conflict that
I
even I don't have
know.
an answer for. I feel exactly the same way. But the good news is this incident spread like wildfire across the village. And that's when Sampat was approached by multiple women in the city asking her for help for similar situations with their own harassers.
So this movement picked up very, very quickly from there. So 2006 is not that far back. It's just about over 15 years ago. And Sampat's special brand of beating up people that crossed them proved very, very popular for women in that area. So as members increased across Banda and the Bundelkhand region, Sampat decided that the group needed some kind of branding. I love a PR woman. So that's when she came up with the name of Gulabi Gang. Also, the uniforms, which were bright pink sarees and suits, and it was chosen as a symbol of both femininity and the strength of women.
Nice.
It also helped that the color pink was like so bright, so it stood out clearly against the dull and muted browns and greens of UP's villages and towns.
Yeah, that reminds me. Apparently, eyewitnesses stated that they could see Gulabi Gang members from really far away And then their uniform was almost like a signal to say that they were approaching. So it's like, run, essentially.
That's so cool. This is like their version of the bat signal.
Yeah, I was going to say, wow, so many Batman references.
I know.
Makes sense.
So now, whoa, pink is the new bat.
Oh, I thought you would say black, and that would have also made sense. Oh my God, just take an idiom and wreck
No.
it.
Exactly. So now what differentiates this group from a bunch of gundas? I don't know. But there is one thing that kind of stuck with us.
Mhm.
Suman Singh, the group's deputy commander, was once quoted as saying, "When a woman seeks the membership of Gulabi Gang, it's because she has suffered injustice, has been oppressed, and does not see any other recourse. All our women can stand up to the men and, if need be, seek retribution through lathis."
Through lathis.
Yes. It's justice or beating the hell up.
I swear.
So, in 2008, Sampat herself had said, "I wanted to work for the people, not for myself alone. I was already holding meetings with people, networking with women who were ready to fight for a cause, and was ready with a group of women 2 years ago."
Nice. You know what else was ready to blow up 2 years ago?
What?
Podcasting, apparently, because people had
Yes.
time during the pandemic. That was my segue for this break. Please go enjoy all the other shows on IVM, and we will see you right after.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Paisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.
Welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to move into this bit where we discuss what are the crimes of the Gulabi Gang. This section is a little iffy because, yeah, sure, they are technically crimes, but, they also seem to have been done as a reaction to something, as a reaction to some kind of injustice. In about 2 years after their formation, the Gulabi Gang became infamous, mostly for carrying out a series of extrajudicial actions against mostly men that they believed had wronged the women of their community. In 2007, there was an incident of a Dalit woman who was sexually assaulted by a man of an affluent caste, which went unreported at the time. So family members of the victim protested and pushed the police to file a case. Their protests were unfortunately met with violence by the police, and these protesters were put in jail without any actual charges. Now, the Gulabi Gang, when they heard of this, marched to the police station and attempted to free the villagers that were imprisoned. At the same time, they demanded that the sexual assault case be registered and the accused in question be taken to jail to await trial. All fair ass. Yeah, I totally understand that. The thing is, though, criminal procedure doesn't work like that. It's not that easy. Yeah, and I want generally to defend criminal procedure. It exists for a reason. But sometimes it feels that these procedures also exist just to mess with us. Just to prevent normal people from filing and reporting cases to begin with, right? And I understand. And that's kind of how the Gulabi Gang felt about this as well. So when they went to the police station, they found that the police officers refused to file the criminal case or let the villagers go. And the group, with Sampat, resorted to violence and attacked the officers. They also destroyed property in the police station. This included desks, cars, other public property, by the way. Stuff in police stations are public property. Some sources even say the women set fire to some of this property as well. Now, it worked though. The local police finally agreed after they were subjected to a series of beatings with lathi.
Well.
And yeah, I mean, that is now their trademark, right? Forget the pink thing, just the lathi. And you can feel phantom beatings as you walk around. This was apparently the first known case of the Gulabi Gang stepping up with violence, like significant violence, for to get the authorities to do their duties.
At least 30 other instances of such actions by the Gulabi Gang were noted from 2007 to 2009. Probably more. They're just not reported.
Right.
Now, the anger and stuff, I get. But like you said, public property, destroying public property, I cannot be okay with that.
Yeah, I understand it. The thing is, that's not how the Gulabi Gang felt. Like let me tell you something that Sampat Pal said later when she was defending these actions.
Mm.
This is her quote. She said, "Nobody comes to our help in these parts. The officials and the police are corrupt and anti-poor. So sometimes you have to take the law in our own hands. At other times, we prefer to shame the wrongdoers. Mind you, we are not a gang in the usual sense of the term. We are a gang for justice."
They are the Justice League. No. But I mean, I get it, but I'm just like, they're gonna like buy all this stuff again for that police station. It's gonna come from
Yeah.
taxpayer money. So
But see, this is the part I'm trying to like sort of reconcile with, this is funny. I used to think that I was a socialist, but now I
Mhm.
said just feel like I'm a straight up anarchist because when incidents like this happen, when the police or the authorities refuse to cooperate and they do it so consistently that it obviously drives people up a wall. Very often, sure, you can be non-cooperative, like you can maliciously
Right.
comply and that might help you.
Yeah.
But there are other times when you're just like, dude, I am just at my wit's end and you want to throw something. So I get why this happened. Do I condone it? No, but I understand it.
Welcome to the Misconduct Pod. We have nuance and kekapike.
Yay.
It's perfectly
our personal
balanced.
brand.
Yes. So back to the Gulabi Gang.
Mhm.
In June 2007, there was another incident involving a government-run ration shop. It was reported to the Gulabi Gang that the government-run fair price shops were not distributing food and grains to the village as they were mandated. Instead, they appeared to be shipping the shop's grains to the open market, where they would be sold at market rates, so ensuring profit for the shop owners. The Gulabi Gang went undercover to track the movement of these rations. When they gathered the evidence, they went to the local police station, but were told that no case will be registered. They tried their local administration office as well, but they were not given any time to meet with the IAS officers. So frustrated with all of this, some of the members of the Gulabi Gang went to the ration shop, dragged out the owner and started...
Wait, let me guess. Did he beat them up?
Yes! So they took him to the police station. We cannot be so happy about someone getting their ass handed to them.
Yeah, well,
But yeah, that's what you get when you don't do
your job.
legal things.
No,
Yeah.
that's actually not fair. It's not about not doing their job. This is something straight up illegal, okay?
It
They're
is.
dragging
It is.
out they're dragging out rations that are meant to be subsidized for poorer
Yeah.
people and just selling it at market rate, okay? How is that different from organ harvesting? It is different, I understand that. But I'm just saying.
Okay. So this ration kadakaran, they basically took him to the police station after beating them the hell up. They took him to the police station and forced him to confess. The confession finally pushed the police to file a criminal complaint. There are later reports of similar incidents where the Gulabi Gang didn't take the case to the police at all. They allegedly just marched straight to the homes of shop owners hoarding grain and rations and pushed them into confessing and surrendering themselves.
So now we have like a list of incidents, right? But the thing is, we don't have any information about what happened after this. So, we just don't know if what the Gulabi Gang did really translated into any sort of outcomes or results that they might have wanted. Like, for example, did the police go through with the arrests? We don't really know that. Was there enough evidence to incriminate the wrongdoers? We genuinely don't do that. And especially in cases of like sexual assault and stuff, a very, very small percentage of these cases actually go to court and a much smaller percentage actually, show convictions. On that note, did the case even make it to court? Did the cases after they went to the court make it to an end? Was anyone punished for it? And most importantly, and this is genuinely, I know we've discussed the vigilantism of it all, but I genuinely cannot reconcile with the fact that all of this is hearsay. Did any of these events actually happen? Did the Gulabi Gang act out of, on the basis of information that was real? Did they follow up, substantiate it? Did they, verify that it was accurate? Or did they just sort of jump up and say, oh, how can this happen? And just, run off and figure out their own brand of justice. That is the bit of it that I find very hard to reconcile with. As much as I can understand how much they would have been pushed to the point that violence would have become a part of this, I just don't know if, did they do their research before they went and beat up somebody,
I have a question. If you have someone confess to some crime after getting beaten up, does that even count? Isn't that just like coerced? Like, especially
Depends
if you
on
don't
the
know.
scenario. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
one, of course, inducing someone to incriminate themselves is
Yeah.
also an issue. It is also definitely an issue if the police do it. We've seen many cases of that. That's not even admissible as evidence, right?
Correct. We
So
spoke
it's-
about that in the Troy Loco episode.
Yes, we did. So it's very possible that, the accused can just essentially say, I was pushed into making this
Yeah.
confession and I'd like to recant it. And then what are you supposed to do, really?
Mm,
It's a he said, she said on so many levels.
correct.
Yeah. I think the other thing is just, I want to believe women when they say stuff like this,
Yeah.
But how much of this can we let people take into their own hands? Like, how much of this should remain due process?
I think it should be entirely due process. Although I know that due process means it takes a very long time and things like that. See, this is the thing when we talk about vigilantism. Say it, Raghavi. Okay.
Darkness.
You'll get.
Sorry.
So when we talk about this, right? Like, I understand if you're still doing things according to like the law, according to the due process that the law has prescribed. But if you have your own code, own like moral dilemma or whatever,
Right.
then I no longer agree with you because now it's your law, which is not what everyone else is following. So that's the other thing that like makes me feel like, am I with them or not?
Let's just look at the other side of this. Like, there are some things that are not really outrightly crimes, but we don't consider them to be okay. For example, marital rape. Today, it's not a crime.
Right.
But in a scenario like that, if someone had come to the Gulabi Gang and said, this is what my husband is doing, they would pick up arms and run after them, I mean, that's what I would presume. So, I mean, it's gray. It's quite gray in those contexts. But I get where you're coming from when you say process is important. It's like the bedrock of our entire criminal justice system. I just wish the process wasn't so arduous, like it wasn't so much work.
Did we just agree on something?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Guess
We
up
did.
it.
On this note, actually, since you brought it up, in 2010, Sampat Pal was arrested for taking the law and order into her own hands. Apparently, today, there are about 11 cases against her that are still pending, including those for assault, battery, kidnapping, and causing grievous hurt. So it's not like she went to away scot-free.
Right.
She had some consequences there as well. I think she just took it in stride.
So there's one other case in 2008 against the Gulabi Gang, which I thought was kind of cute. After a series of debilitating power cuts, the villages in Banda were getting very frustrated that they didn't have access to daily uninterrupted electricity.
Okay.
So the Gulabi Gang looked into this and they found out that the officials at the local electricity board were just refusing to turn the power on. Apparently, the officials were asking for bribes in returning for turning the power back on.
All right.
And can you guess what the Gulabi Gang did in response?
They beat their ass.
They did. and their ass was beat so hard that the electricity was turned on immediately.
Hey.
There are also reports that say that there were no major power cuts for several weeks after that.
That was cute. I'll give it to that.
Yeah.
Not the beating part.
No.
But you know what? There was an outcome for it and I appreciate that.
We should rethink the way we define cute.
Yeah, maybe we should work on that. Anyway, on that note, here is this much, much sadder story.
Oh no.
Why do I get all the sad stories, dude? This is actually genuinely sad. Trigger warning up ahead, all right? In 2011, a girl named Sheelu Nishad, who was 17 at the time, had been gang raped and severely beaten up by her assaulters. She came to the police station to file a report and was instead arrested. The alleged rapist apparently included a member of the local legislature who had demanded that she be arrested. Now, the victim's father approached the Gulabi Gang and they immediately staged a series of protests in front of the police station and the accused's house. Now, unfortunately, the pressure to, do something in this case only really amped up, after the police felt that political pressure. The protests were nonetheless very important and relevant to the story. We don't have any more information specifically about this case. We don't know where it stands today. All we have is a letter by Sheelu herself, where she stated, the events that happened to her in her own words. But one good thing that came out of this was that Nishad would go on to become a pretty famous women's rights activist herself. She started a group called the Nagin Gang to parallel Gulabi Gang. Today, the group sees active membership for about 20,000 women across Bundelkhand. So, there was some positive impact from the Gulabi Gang from this aspect. When it comes to sexual assault cases in particular, the Gulabi Gang does not step down. In fact, Sampat Pal herself said, "Yes, we fight rapists with lathis. If we find the culprit, we thrash him black and blue, so he dare not attempt to do wrong to any girl or woman again."
In her biography, Sampat Pal describes a scenario where a mother came to her with a weeping daughter. The daughter's husband demanded 20,000 rupees as dowry money, without which he said he will divorce the girl. Sampat Pal took her gang to the man's house and demanded an explanation. "If you do not take her back and keep her well, we will resort to other measures," she said. Now, nothing got too violent in this case other than some verbal abuse. In fact, by this point, the Gulabi Gang was so infamous that people just did not resist them anymore. The man apparently apologized and took his wife back.
All right.
This story I find a bit concerning
Why is that?
because the Gulabi Gang, they previously said that they don't consider themselves to be male-bashing feminists.
Okay.
They've also claimed that they often return girls to their husbands' or fathers' homes because, and I quote, "women need men to live with."
Oh
Yeah.
no.
But having said that, I think I understand it. Like, when we were talking about in the context setting, we were talking about the literacy disparity. We were talking about just the sheer sex ratio, right? Which is so vast.
Right.
So I get why you would come with that framework.
That sort of preconception. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes, we can judge them from a very, very privileged position.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's because we've had years of education. We've had the privilege of having feminist, families. So we can say that, oh, this is concerning. But think of it from where they came from. If you don't have access to education and the man does, so you're stuck with that. So I get it. I feel sad.
No,
but
it's
I
not
get
even an education aspect, right? This is a society where men are given more opportunities, and that could even result from something as basic as your parents could have some sort of business that they run, however small or big it may be. And it's very likely that you will never get to be a part of it as a woman. It's going to go to your brother or some other male descendant. And your role effectively would become to move to another home, which is your husband's, right? I get that. Thank you for checking my privilege. I needed that in that moment. Now, the Gulabi Gang, though, isn't all bad either, because they have done a lot of good work in the social space, right? They have prevented child marriages. They've provided safety for couples that, wanted to be married against their family's wishes. They've also protested against the authorities for cutting budgets that was meant for female literacy, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. They've also initiated many events and programs to help women get involved in cottage industries and handicrafts, thereby giving them some mode of income. So, like you said, while they probably recognize on some level that, women in that area may need men to a certain degree, it's good that they're still acknowledging that it's good to have some degree of independence.
Correct.
In UP especially, the Gulabi Gang provides a safe space to women. In fact, if you're stuck and you need help, you can approach a member of the Gulabi Gang and know that you will receive, at the very least, some basic protection from your current situation. For many women, that can mean escaping abusive environments or exploitative labor. And the thing is, despite, becoming popular for mostly its violent approach to a lot of its activism, which is the stuff that gets reported. No one really wants to report, oh, did you know that they started a series of cottage industries? Nobody's going to read that. As opposed to women beat up man. That is a great headline, right? So, yeah.
A great headline written by a caveman, clearly.
Yes, I get it. Listen, not everyone can access ICSE English, okay? So let's not be mean about it. The thing is, what I'm trying to say is, despite, being popular for mostly its violent approach, the group does use non-violent methods also. They use peaceful protests and occupations and marches. And in the back end, they work in very different ways to provide this safe space for women, especially in UP.
Also, we did mention that if you reach out to Gulabi Gang, if you're stuck, if you reach out to a member, you will receive help. Don't go to anyone wearing pink. Make sure they're actually from the Gulabi Gang.
Oh, that's, yeah. Just because chumma they're wearing pink means don't walk up to them and be like, please help.
Yes, correct. One thing about the Gulabi Gang that I do actually admire is that they don't take donations from political parties or most NGOs. Sampat Pal has said that political parties look for kickbacks if they fund the organization. To quote a senior member of the group, "We don't want donations or handouts. We don't want appeasement or affirmative action. Give us work, pay us proper wages, and restore our dignity."
Oh, yeah. I 100% get that. Earn
Yeah.
that bread. Make that moolah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we get it. Also, speaking of bread and moolah,
Mm-hmm.
if you're wealthy and you love our show, you should advertise with us. And we would slot you in a break similar to this. Example of a break. Go.
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Misconduct, Raghavi and Nisha analyze actress Riya Chakrabarti's case with lawyer Anshul Chaudhary. On The Habit Coach, Ashton sheds light on existential crises and how to deal with them. On Cock and Bull, Puneet Akash and Antariksh discuss India's projections to surpass China as the world's most populous country by 2023. On Don Baika Gappa Aika, Avanti and Aparna talk about how comparisons affect our daily life, our family, and society at large. And on Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Elon Musk abandoning the Twitter deal. Before I leave, I just want to remind you all that we have some amazing merchandise for you guys. Please go to our website, click on the shop tab, and check out the collection of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any other platforms you're listening to us. And remember, you can also check us out on YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey which helps us understand who you all are, our listeners. And we'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Boat Lifestyle, Small Case, Capgemini, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back after the break. So where are we at with the Gulabi Gang today? It's still thriving. So the gang appears to have about 400,000 active members as of 2014, spread across 11 districts in the state of Uttar Pradesh.
Nice.
They run a website called gulabigang.in. The website is not super well maintained.
Oh.
A lot of the stuff we wanted to read, like the history, current social work, it seems a bit incomplete, or it has a little notice that says coming soon.
Oh, okay.
But there is a section for donations to the gang. If you feel like their work resonates with your ideals, feel free to drop them some financial assistance. We do want to clarify, they don't seem to publish their accounts. It's also not clear whether you will get a tax certificate for your donation. That's ATG, in case you're wondering.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, do your research. We are not your financial advisors.
That is also financial advice to say, I am not your financial advisor. So in 2012, a documentary called Gulabi Gang was released, and this was directed by Nishita Jain and Torstein Groot. It features Sampat Pal and other members of the Gulabi Gang. And the documentary sort of traced the history and the current work of the gang. And it also received quite a few award nominations for its work. So that was a great way to sort of bring the Gulabi Gang into a more international space. And we're pretty glad that they got that, exposure. What else happened in 2012? Well, Sampat Pal participated in Big Boss 6.
Hey!
Yeah, this is the second woman that we've covered on the podcast that decided to participate in Big Boss. The first was the one and only
Seema Parihar.
That's right. I kind of get it though. Some of this fame can be very fleeting and I understand if they want to capitalize on it. But Sampat Pal did not make it for too long in the Big Boss house. She was unfortunately evicted on day 34 of her stay at the house.
So Sampat Pal herself dabbled in politics also for a little bit. First as an independent contender and later on a ticket from the Congress party. However, she was not successful. Her first stint in politics only got her like 2,800 votes in the entire constituency.
Aww.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you go around beating people.
Okay, you've basically alienated half the population, I suppose.
Yeah.
That sucks.
In 2014, something interesting did happen. Sampat Pal was relieved of her role as the head of the Gulabi Gang.
What?
Yeah, I say relieved, but what I mean is removed.
Like forcefully. Oh no.
So the members of the gang had two primary complaints against her. One, that she was involved in financial impropriety. And two, that she was involved in too much self-promotion at the cost of the organization's mission.
All right.
So Suman Singh Chauhan, the assistant commander of the group, was given the position of acting commander and a 7-member committee was set up to assist her. And India Today article from 4th March 2014 says that the other issues also included giving more time to political campaigns, which the other members did not appreciate, and participating in Big Boss without consulting the core members of the gang.
Oh, I did not expect that to be a problem. But
Maybe they were just jealous.
Maybe it's possible.
Sampath has come out guns a-blazing though. She
Mhm.
said that she can get back her power with the help of rebel gang members.
Whoa. But she does not. The
Oh,
thing is,
no.
so you know what? There are actually no reports after this that we've seen where we
Hmm.
can confirm if she got her position back as the commander of the Gulabi Gang.
Mhm.
What is sad though is that Sampath was removed from her position just a mere 4 days before Women's Day, which is on March
Mm.
8th.
Yeah.
And I understand that would have been a bit humiliating
Mhm.
because Sampath is often called to speak at events on Women's Day in particular. And her position is not independent, right? She represents Gulabi Gang. So it would have been particularly upsetting for her to go to one of these events probably on Women's Day and, essentially just having been ousted from her position.
Hmm. Yeah, but let's not deny Sampath her dues.
Mhm.
She started something that grew into a pretty big deal.
Yeah, 400,000 members.
Mhm.
That's not a joke, yeah.
Gulabi Gang has been featured across the world as a revolutionary vigilante movement. There was even a movie released in 2014 with legendary actresses Madhuri Dixit and Juhi Chawla, which was called Gulab Gang.
Ah.
No connection. No, I'm kidding. It was based on the life of Sampat Pal.
Yeah, but apparently no one took her permission before they made
Oh.
this movie. Yeah, I hate when they do that. That's like the
Yeah.
least. Yeah, or give heads up. Just be like, hey, notice, right?
Hmm.
The thing is, she filed for a stay order for the movie's release, which was only granted, unfortunately, for 1 day by the Delhi High Court. So it was just a day's delay in releasing the movie. However, if it helps, Sampath, the movie bombed so hard. So, yeah.
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah? Question mark. The Ministry of External Affairs has also recognized Gulabi Gang in an article published by Elijah Stephens.
Mhm.
The article said, "Perhaps it is time now to pick up sticks. If the Gulabi Gang in India is a sign that women have reached the limits of their patience, there must be hope for the rest of the world."
Hmm.
You know, I'm annoyed by this only because why is it that women have to reach the limits of their patience?
Yeah.
Why must they pick up sticks to prove anything? Why can't it just
Mhm.
be normal?
Yeah.
And Elijah Stephens, check your privilege.
So sad. I mean, he just wrote it, yeah. The External
Still.
Affairs Ministry has published it. I think what's more important is, like you said, just the fact that we need to really be pushed to the point of like no return
Yeah.
before someone in some position of authority says, fine, we'll do it, I guess. Even then,
Yeah.
it's phrased like a favor, right?
Yeah.
And basic things, everything from just saying educate women, reproductive rights, abortion rights, give
Yeah.
us the same pay as men,
Mm.
don't sexually harass us at work. I mean, just come on.
Don't sexually harass us, period.
Of course, but the fact
Yeah.
that we had to specifically state that for work
know.
is a problem. In general, sexual harassment and sexual assault was not okay. But we had to say, the Supreme Court had to say, boys, put it in your pants.
You know what? I remember when like the whole Me Too thing was going on.
Mhm.
I remember so many of my colleagues
Mhm.
were saying, men and women,
Mhm.
were saying things like, "What is this man? Now we have to be careful about everything we say." Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
You should.
be
It's
careful.
a professional environment. So, yes, I think it's really terrible that women have to just sort of lay by and be like, okay, this is fine. And then finally we explode for
Yeah.
something to be taken seriously. I think that really is the takeaway here, apart from everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, whatever Raghavi and I have to say about the gang or the general idea of vigilantism,
Mm-hmm.
one thing is true: the Gulabi Gang is a cultural and political phenomenon.
For sure.
Raghavi, do you
Mhm.
want to try and say vigilantism one last time?
Do it. Okay. Vigilantism.
Yay!
Yeah,
Not bad.
thank God. I was literally, I expected you to ask me this. So while you were chatting earlier, I quickly pulled out the phonetics
Good
for
job. Good job.
vigilantism. Doing my job.
So we would like to end this episode from a quote from a 2019 article from the website Feminism in India, which said, "To this day, the sight of the women in flaming pink generates a sense of fear and trepidation in the minds of rapists, abusers, and wrongdoers, and a sense of power, dignity, and independence in the women."
Great. Just one thing. A car just passed by very slowly, playing Garba music really loudly. Did anybody hear that? Okay. But I was just like, for a second, because it was just... It was so loud as it passed by. I was like, there's a Navratri season already. God damn it. And that brings us to the end of this episode. If you like this, there are many more of our episodes you can listen to. We are available on the IVM Podcast Network. And of course, wherever you get your podcast, just listen. We will know you have listened. Go for it.
Not just listen, review us. You can leave us reviews. You can leave those little stars on Spotify. You can leave reviews on Apple, on Audible, on YouTube. Under each episode, you can leave some comments about the episode or just generally about life. We'll read them out on the next look back episode. Yeah. Any other podcast hosting platform which allows you to leave reviews, please do.
Definitely. And please follow us on social media. On Instagram, we are under the handle Misconduct Pod. We have memes, updates, true crime content, reels, and so much more.
And we will see you on the next episode of Misconduct.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
What is the workplace and how does your gender and body affect your right at work? Hey, I'm Priya Mirza, and on the Longest Constitution podcast, we critically examine the vision of the Indian Constitution and laws. In season 1, we looked at sex, gender, sexuality in India, and the landmark judgments which transformed our rights as citizens in this country. In season 2, we discussed the laws which shape the workplace and examine how ability, competence, and merit impact us, and much more. Join me, Priya Mirza, every Wednesday only on the IVM Podcast app, website, and all the major podcast streaming platforms.